Hello and welcome back. Our next speaker is Rory Spence, benchmarking expert from the Wow Company. They published the annual Bench Press study, which is used to benchmark thousands of digital agencies, and I cannot just wait to hear what he's got to say. Rory, can you hear me?
Barish, yes, good to see you. How are you?
Same, very good. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'll leave you over the stage and I'll ask you some questions in the end.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm going to share my screen as I've got some slides to talk you through this afternoon, and I'm really excited to share some pricing secrets that, as Barish mentioned, we've got from our annual benchmarking survey. So I'm conscious of time. 15 minutes doesn't feel like very long to go into this topic. So I'm gonna dive straight into it. And where I wanted to start when talking around pricing was first of all with actually a little bit of insight as to how agencies are pricing typically. And that's what I'm going to just pull up on the screen here, first of all. So you can see here that still a huge number of agencies are using a fixed pricing model. I appreciate that some of the time a fixed pricing model can be the easiest way to go, and sometimes it definitely does the trick. So that's brilliant. However, what I would add is sometimes when done poorly, fixed pricing can really lead to scope creep and therefore a drop in profitability. And so, if you are in that camp where you're only ever offering a fixed pricing model, I'd really encourage you to move more towards one of these two middle options that you can see here. Particularly agile pricing, I think is really interesting. The idea behind agile pricing is that you may split out a large project into, say, 3 or 4 chunks. And so that first project, that first part of the project, you would be able to scope for and easily define, and you would put a fee around that particular element. Once you've then completed that first phase, you're then in a position to quote for the second phase of work, which can then be clearly scoped and defined. And then that can lead to the third step, and so on and so on. And I think that can really help you just with adapting your pricing when you start working with a client and once you see some of the additional complexities. And of course, value-based pricing, which is that fourth option here. Interesting to see, only 23% of agencies using value-based pricing. I'd like to think this number would have dramatically increased if we asked it now. But this seems to be like the gold dust really for a lot of agencies, and where people are really striving towards reaching. But can be really great if you can get your proposition right, if you can be brilliant at providing a particular service, and you can be excellent at providing it for a particular sector or industry, then you're in a great opportunity to try value-based pricing, where you can really hit additional levels of profitability. Now, following on from this, I also wanted to show how agencies tend to break out their hourly rate. And you can see here that 51% of agencies use a blended rate and 49% use a tiered rate. So pretty much coin flip right down the middle with agencies and how they do this. Again, just to give some really clear definitions so we're on the same page. A blended rate is where, if you have a team of 10 in your agency, you will all be charged out at exactly the same level. Okay, so you as an agency may work at £100 an hour, for example. Whereas a tiered rate, of course, is going to be split. So depending on your level of seniority or your position within the agency, some of you may be charged out at £150 an hour, some at £100 an hour, some at £50 an hour. And that's what we're talking about there with this tiered rate. So you can see really there doesn't seem to be too much of a preference in terms of how agencies do this. But what I wanted to share and what I found really interesting, and I'm sure you will as well, is the difference in profitability level between these two approaches. And you can see that on the screen here. And I found this absolutely fascinating. So those agencies that are using a tiered pricing model are considerably more profitable than those agencies using a blended rate. It's not even close. If we were looking at 1 or a 2% difference in gross profit here, then you could argue, hey, look, well, actually, a blended rate is so much easier to manage, so I'll just stick with that. However, this shows that actually those agencies, this is agencies above £1 million turnover. I want to make that really clear. But those agencies that are using a tiered pricing, a tiered hourly rate, I should say, considerably more profitable. So definitely something to think about here. Now, it wouldn't be right talking about agency pricing if I didn't actually share what these hourly rates look like. And that's what I want to stick on the next slide for you here. So this is a breakdown of agencies who use a tiered hourly rate and exactly what they are charging, depending on that level of seniority. So you can see here what average agencies are charging. This is UK agencies. The top 25% and the top 10%. So by all means, take a screenshot of this on your screen right now, or take a picture on your phone to come back to, because I know there's a lot to digest here. And I'm sure Bash can share this with you afterwards if needed as well. But I'd really encourage you to think about where you're at here. I love particularly this director level rate, and actually really challenge yourself on where you're at from that perspective, because you as the director, potentially the owner, the MD within the agency, really in an ideal world, you should probably be spending as little time as possible on client work and on that delivery. If your team can be doing that work, that's going to allow you to focus more on the strategy of the business and actually driving that forward. There's also a good chance that you as the director you're probably the one doing the majority of the sales for the agency. And therefore, like I said, the more time you can be spending on new business and away from client work, the better. However, the caveat then being that, hey, well, if I am going to come in and do some client work, at the very least, I'm going to charge myself out disproportionately during that time. I'm not going to be charging myself out at the same level as some of my mid-level team, and certainly not at some of the junior members of the team. And of course, I put all of this on the page so that you could get a full picture of exactly how agencies are charging and what sort of hourly rates there are. But what I'd encourage you to do is completely forget about those bottom 3 rows and just focus on that top 10%, right? I'm sure you're all really confident in the work that you're doing. I'm sure you feel that you're a top 10% agency, and so you should. If you're doing brilliant work, then position yourself here and take a look at these numbers. This is the benchmark. This is where you should be aiming for. And now my final tip. I wanted to share a number 1 tip with you when it comes to pricing within agencies. And that is the idea of giving 3 options. Okay, I absolutely would encourage you to take a look into this, take a look into the theory behind offering 3 pricing options. Some of you may have read Blair Enns' book, Pricing Creativity. If you haven't, I'd really encourage you to check it out. It goes into much greater detail than I'm going to be able to in the next few minutes, and he'll do a much better job of explaining it than I will as well. But it's a fantastic book. Blair Enns also features on Two Bob's podcast, which is brilliant. If you've not checked that out, I'd encourage you to do so. But to give you some headlines, the idea behind these 3 pricing options, well, it's a really smart way of doing things. So instead of a client coming to you with a brief and you simply putting 1 price in front of them, instead you're working out, really what is your good, better, and best offering, or for some people still use gold, silver, and bronze. My personal view, that a lot of people do that. How can you change yours up? How can you be a little bit different to that? But the idea, that the logic behind this being, that middle option really is effectively what you would call your standard option. If you were only going to give 1 option, or if previously you only offered 1 pricing option, that would be your middle tier. But if you can offer a premium level where actually there are some extra frills and some extra value around the edges, but for a premium price or a considerably higher price, what it will do psychologically is make that middle tier that we're talking about here, this middle option, will make it feel considerably cheaper, considerably more value. better value, I should say. So it's really, really smart from that side of things. That technique is called anchoring high. So you're anchoring people's prices. If I don't know how much a PlayStation is right now, but someone gave me the option of £1,000 for a brand new PlayStation. However, they then came in and said, "Yeah, but look, I can get you this deal over here that'll get you one for £600." Well, I had no idea how much that PlayStation was going to cost me initially, but suddenly that £600 feels like really good value compared to the £1,000 that I originally had. Then it's also smart just to be able to offer that third option as well. Actually, what is your really, really low budget solution? That's really smart, because what you'll find is it will really help, as this bottom bullet point says here, it will really help to work out your prospect's budget. So if they're not too forthcoming with what they can and can't afford, by doing this, you'll find naturally they want to react to one of these prices. And if they feel that even that lowest option might be a little bit out of reach for them right now, then you probably know they're not the right client for you. If they can only just afford this really budget solution, do you want to be working with them when ideally they're going to be at that top or that middle sort of section? Another reason why this is really smart is it helps to tell your clients every service that you provide. So actually you can talk them through, hey, look, there's this premium offering we do where we can also provide these services that they may not have known about. Now, right now, they might not know those services, but that's going to be really helpful if in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, they have a need for that. And actually, suddenly they can come back and say, oh, look, you mentioned that you do this. Hey, we might need your help with that. And also, it can really help to avoid that dreaded scope creep as well. If you're able to say, hey, look, this is our best option right here. This is our premium service. Look, we can also work at this level at slightly reduced rate. If they then come back to you in 2-3 months' time and they want a little bit more than what they'd originally agreed, then you can say, hey, look, that's the sort of thing that was included in that premium offering. Can you remember I talked you through that? You mentioned it wasn't right for you right now. And then you can really clearly angle, well, hey, look, of course we can incorporate these things and we can help here. However, we're going to need to charge additionally to do those things. So I think for those reasons, like giving 3 options, not only from a pricing perspective, but in all of these other areas as well, I think you'll find will really drastically improve really the value of your projects, but also your conversion rate, also minimize scope creep, and will really help with those new business conversations. So my number one tip when it comes to pricing, how many options are you offering? Can you move towards offering 3 options? Barish, hey.
Hi, thank you, Rory. I'm still blown away by the stat you've given between tiered pricing and the blended rates. The profitability jump is amazing, and you would think that there would be some sort of industry best practice that everybody would do tiered pricing. Why do you think that's not the case?
Yeah, great question. So I think really it probably comes down to the ease. Using a blended rate can be really straightforward. I think particularly in smaller agencies where actually you have just got a team of maybe 4 or 5,
Mm,
blended rate certainly is more popular because
mhm,
of how straightforward it is to manage, and actually you don't have to be, you don't have to be tracking time as accurately. Equally, it can help in the new business conversation to use a blended rate, because as soon as you start breaking out, hey, look, well, we're going to have such and so working on this part of the project at this hourly rate, then I'm going to come in over here at this hourly rate. What we've found the feedback is actually sometimes you have to go into quite a lot of negotiation around that,
mm.
justifying actually why is it that you have to do these certain bits? Could this person within the team do it
Mm.
instead? So I think the answer to that question, I think, is people still use blended rates because of ease.
Mhm.
But like I said, I think the profitability benefits massively outweigh the simplicity of the blended rate.
Do you think then, I'm just keep on asking questions here, sorry about that, but do you think the client maturity is also something at play here? If for a larger client or a more mature client that really has been working for, let's say, with an agency that knows how digital works, for those clients, it's easier to work towards with these more mature, complex models. But maybe clients that are new into this or don't have a good, let's say, reflex of working with agencies, it's harder to do that. Do you think?
Yeah, sure, sure. I think that's a really valid point. I think agencies often have a bit of a challenge on their hands of educating their clients
Mm.
to actually the value that they bring and why this is worth an investment. I know we've got a number of clients who will actually refuse to work with clients unless they have a marketing manager in house, for
Mm.
example,
Mm.
because if they're working directly with the owner of the business, if it's a small business and they're working directly with the owner, they know that's going to cause headaches because they don't quite appreciate the value of what they bring. They'll only work with businesses with marketing managers in place.
And my last question, I promise. In the let's say the price differences you've shown from the top bottom 25 to the top 10, there's a quite big jump, like 2 times. Yeah, as
Yeah,
far as I've been able to understand from your chart. That's fascinating as well. And but I don't think you're not suggesting that everybody starts charging that very top 10% rate. So I think another thing to be very careful about is not to start too low, then you will have a very long journey upwards. So,
yeah.
is there any tips you can share with us to have a feel for where to start from when you're talking to a client?
Yeah, 100%. I think that confidence around increasing prices is a huge challenge and a barrier for a lot of agency owners. That's a lot often the thing that gets in the way and prevents people from increasing their prices. But I think, well, as I said, really, it's a confidence game. I'm a big believer. It is a confidence game, right? Absolutely. The more you have these conversations, the easier that they will get. And I think, like a little kind of tip that I would share that for me, I think will really help with increasing prices. One is, of course, start with new clients in terms
Hmm.
of start with new business.
Hmm.
So actually, the best time to do this is when you've got a really healthy pipeline, right? And when you're winning work and when you're confident and you
Hmm.
know that, hey, if we don't win this particular client, we know we've got other opportunities on the way. They're already in the pipeline. So
Hmm.
you can just have a little play around with your pricing and just see what sort of reaction you get and actually where does it feel like I'm at the sweet spot. I've always said with pricing, if everybody is saying yes to you and if you've got a really high conversion rate, it's possible that that is because you're not charging enough money.
Hmm.
Actually, you should be getting told no. You should be too expensive for some people. That's probably when when you're getting that slight kickback, that's probably when you're at the right level.
Hmm.
So start with your new clients. Once you've done that and you know where your sweet spot is and hey, look, yeah, we're pricing at this level and it feels good, feels right.
Hmm.
um, Still have that conversation with your existing clients, right?
Hmm.
And actually, I think a really interesting phrase you can use here, you can go back to an existing client, maybe you've been working with them for a couple of years and they're still on that old rate, and actually you can give them a call and just explain, hey, look, when we started working with you, like our rates were down here and this is
Hmm.
still at the level that you're at right now,
Hmm.
whereas we're bringing in new clients at this level here.
Hmm.
How would you feel about bridging that gap?
Hmm.
I think that's a really interesting phrase. How would you feel about bridging that gap? Because what you'll find is you're not telling them, hey, we need to put your fees up. You're asking them for their reaction to it.
Hmm.
And you'll be surprised at some of the reactions you'll get as well. I think some people will come back and say, look, we can't afford to increase your fee, like increase your fees even by £10. We just couldn't do it. We'd have to go out to tender. You might find some people though actually genuinely will come back and say, hey, I'll be honest, we love working with you. We've been expecting this conversation. We're
Hmm.
surprised you didn't call us earlier. Like, actually, we're happy to increase our fees. Actually, you're doing great work. And then most of the conversations will be somewhere in the middle there,
Hmm.
and it will be, look, actually, that feels like maybe a bit of a stretch. However, how do you feel about maybe meeting in the middle? Could we do something here? And then at least you're in control of that conversation. You can then turn around, and if they say you couldn't increase your fees, you've got the decision to make. Okay, noted. We'll carry on at the level that we're at.
Hmm.
Equally, you might turn around and say, okay, well, in that case, you're probably going to have to find another agency. So you're not in that situation immediately going to upset any clients. You're asking for their reaction, and then you can base your response off the back of that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rory. I'm sure our audience has a lot of questions for you, and we'll make sure that they will be able to find you when they want. We'll make sure that after the event. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Arash.
being with us. So, everyone, thank you for joining us on day one. That's a wrap for day one now, and come back at the same time tomorrow for culture versus strategy, brand as an enabler of growth, and a panel on future of events. You can keep networking now. The system will remain open, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thank you. Goodbye.